Hi viewers, myself R. Venugopal, Assistant Professor of Physics, and I am working at Government Degree College, Mahmoodabad, in Telangana. Today we are going to discuss about the uh, topic of Gauss law, which is the part of Unit 1, that is electrostatistics, in the chapter in the course of electromagnetism. That is, which is common curriculum for BSc third year, semester 5, Telangana state students. So, the outline of my talk for today is differential form of Gauss law. That means in the previous class itself we have discussed about what is Gauss law, and we have discussed about the proof of Gauss law also. For brief view, let me write the Gauss law. Differential form of Gauss law is integral form of Gauss law is integral over a closed path E bar dot ds bar is equal to charge included in the closed surface divided by epsilon naught times. This is the integral form of Gauss law. So we have proved this law in two cases. One is when the charge enclosed within the closed surface, or in the second case when the charge is outside the closed surface. You have proved this Gauss law in two cases also. In today's class, what we are going to discuss is, this is integral form of Gauss law, right? So in today's class, we are going to derive differential form of Gauss law and the various applications of Gauss law. Then in that application part, we are going to derive equations for electric field by using this Gauss law for an infinitely long charge distribution, and the second application, that is electric field due to infinite conducting sheet of charge. So now let us derive the differential form of Gauss law. As we have discussed in the previous class, according to Gauss law, what happens? Surface integral of E bar dot ds bar over a closed surface is equal to the charge enclosed within that closed surface, that is Q, divided by epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is a permittivity of free space. Or we can write this equation like that, if we, like this, if we send this epsilon naught to this side. So what happens, that epsilon naught comes this side, and closed surface integral over a closed path, closed surface E bar dot ds bar is equal to Q, it becomes. Now the thing is that Q is the, let us say this is the closed surface. This Q charge is there within this closed surface. For the time being, let us consider that this particular charge is uniformly distributed over this closed surface. Then what happens, that uniformly charged density, let us consider rho, where the charge is distributed equally throughout this volume. Then the let us take a charge Q is distributed uniformly over a volume V, and rho be the density of charge. Then rho, there is a relation between rho and Q, that is Q is equal to triple integral, that is volume integral of rho dV. So this is relation between rho and Q, when rho is the charge density and Q is the charge enclosed within this closed surface. But the thing is here that charge is uniformly distributed over that closed surface. So what happens, now we can rewrite this equation like this, that is epsilon naught integral over a closed surface E bar dot ds bar is equal to, now we are replacing this Q with this one, so triple integral or volume integral of rho dV, it becomes. So this, let us consider this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. and this is equation 3. Now what we have to do? Now we have to use Gauss divergence theorem to convert this surface integral into volume integral. This left portion is right. So this is a surface integral, whereas this portion, this right side part is volume integral. So now what we are doing? We are using Gauss divergence theorem to convert this surface integral to volume integral. That's what we are going to do. So now this is the actual equation we have. That is, let us take it as fourth equation. Now substituting this is from Gauss divergence theorem. Gauss divergence theorem says surface integral over a closed path is a bar dot ds bar, where a bar is any arbitrary vector field, is equal to divergence of a bar or dv. This is the Gauss divergence theorem in general for a arbitrary vector field which is a bar. But in our case, what is there? Instead of a, we have e bar here. So what we are doing? We are writing in the previous portion, this portion. We are writing this portion by using Gauss divergence theorem like this. So what it becomes integral over a closed surface a bar dot ds bar is equal to volume integral of divergence E into dv it becomes, because according to Gauss divergence theorem. Let us call it as equation 4. Now from equation now substituting equation 4 in equation 3, we get this equation. Epsilon naught here, epsilon naught volume integral of divergence E dv is equal to volume integral of rho dv it becomes. Now equation 5 is true for any arbitrary surface, but the thing is that it should be a closed surface, that's all. But whatever is the shape of that surface, okay, this one is applicable for all the surfaces and all the arbitrary volume. That means whatever shape and whatever the volume you take, it is applicable for this equation stands for all the cases. So what happens? Hence the integrands must be equal. Here the integrands are there. Just this is the integrand and this is the integrand, because this is this is becoming equal to this one, right? That's why what happens? The integrands must be equal. That means this one epsilon r divergence E is equal to rho it becomes, or simply we can write divergence of E is equal to rho by epsilon naught. But divergence we can write like this, because this is the del operator. This is the del operator. Divergence is nothing but del dot E bar, that is equal to we are writing this one rho by epsilon naught. So, but in vacuum happens, what happens? For vacuum, this epsilon, that is permittivity of the medium, becomes epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space, permittivity of free space. So now we substitute this one epsilon naught here. Therefore, divergence D is equal to rho, or divergence D is equal to rho. So this is the differential form of Gauss law. So what is the differential form of Gauss law? We have taken the integral form of Gauss law. What we have done? We have considered that the total charge is uniformly distributed over the closed surface. After that, what we have taken, we have used Gauss divergence theorem to convert the surface integral to volume integral. Then we have equated both parts which are in left side and right side. Then we have come to a conclusion, that is epsilon naught divergence is equal to rho. From this one we can write like this, but here in vacuum, what happens? This is D. D is equal to epsilon naught T times, where D is the displacement vector and E is the electric field intensity vector. Electric field intensity vector. So what happens? E bar is equal to D bar divided by epsilon naught. It becomes, now if you bring this side, divergence D is equal to E rho, it happens. So this is the actual equation in differential form. So this is the Gauss law in differential form. Now let us use this Gauss law to find out the electric field due to some symmetries. Here the symmetry is, this is a long, infinitely long charge distribution. Let us say this is a infinitely long charge distribution. That means it's a linear charge distribution. Let us take a Y kind of thing like this. But for the convenience, what we have taken, we have elaborated this part like this. Just observe. If you observe this surface, the charge is distributed over this entire wire uniformly. What we are calling that charge per unit length. Charge per unit length, we are calling it as lambda, where lambda is the total charge over the infinite long charge connecting wire, and L is the length of the wire. Let us say L is the length of the wire, or small l we take. Okay, so lambda is defined as the linear charge density. Linear charge density means charge per unit length is called as linear charge density. So what happens if we take this one, this is a infinitely long charge distribution. Here what we are taking, this surface area of this one is equal to surface area of this one, but this is a curved surface, this is a curved surface, this one is a curved surface. So we have divided the entire surface area into three parts. One is this surface area, that is ds2, and this one is one more surface area, that is ds3, s3, and this is curved surface area, we are calling it as s1. Now what we are doing, we are dividing the entire surface, or let us say we are dividing the S2 surface into infinite small parts like DS2. That means DS2 is a very small surface element in the S2 surface, whereas DS1 is the very infinite small surface element in the surface S1. S1 is here our curved surface, that means cylindrical surface. Now DS3 is the infinite small surface element on the surface 3. So already we have considered that the charge which we have given to this infinite long charge distribution, that charge Q is uniformly distributed over this surface. Okay, that's why we are using a term called linear charge density, that is equal to Q by L. Okay, so now we have to remember one thing, that is the electric field is in this direction. The electric field is in this direction. Let us say here the electric field is in this direction, because the electric field will be always outward to the charged bodies when there is a positive charge within this surface. Okay, so because this is electric field is in this direction, but if you consider this small infinite small surface area, we always tell that the direction of this particular surface is denoted by a normal to this surface. Okay, so here the normal to the surface will be in this direction, whereas electric field also in that particular direction only. That means for this curved surface, electric field is in this direction, E bar is in this direction, whereas the surface element also that is ds also in this direction. Okay, but whereas if we consider this surface, that is S2 surface, for this particular surface, if you consider this is the smallest, that is infinite small surface element on this one, what happens? The normal to this surface, that is what we are calling it as the direction of this surface, direction of the infinite small element is ds2 where in this case our electric field is in this direction, but the ds2 is in this direction. That's why the angle between them will be equal to 90 degrees. So this is here also the same case. Okay. So here the infinitesimal element is ds3. The normal to that particular surface is in this direction, whereas the electric field is in this direction. So what happens for this case also the angle is around 90 degrees. For this one also the angle is 90 degrees. And for this one also, for this one, but whereas for this curved surface the angle is 0 degrees. Now, let us go into the theory part. Consider an infinitely long line charge having linear density lambda. I have already explained about the lambda, that is linear charge density. As the charge distribution is linear, we construct a cylindrical Gaussian surface of radius r and a length L. So this is the linear charge distribution. Okay. To find out the electric field due to this linear charge distribution, we have to consider a Gaussian surface. We have to consider a Gaussian surface which is having the radius of r and the length L. So this is the length, and we have to consider a Gaussian surface, cylindrical Gaussian surface of radius r and the length L. All the points on the curved surface are at the same perpendicular distance from the line of charge. So this is the line of charge. This is the line of charge. Okay. On this line of charge, all the points on this curved surface. This is the curved surface. Okay. All the points on this curved surface are at an equal distance. So the direction of the field at any point on the curved surface is normal to the line, as we have discussed already. So this is the line. This is the surface charge. Linear charge distribution. This is the Gaussian surface. What we have considered. This is the Gaussian surface. Okay. On this particular Gaussian surface, we have three surfaces. One is S2. This is curved surface S1, and this is one more surface, that is S3. Okay. So now we have to find out the electric field at a point R, at a point P. Let us say here, where we have to find out the electric field. For this purpose, what we are doing, we are drawing a Gaussian surface which is cylindrical in shape. Okay, to find out the electric field, the radius of this Gaussian surface is R, and its length is L. Let us consider. At the ends of the cylinder, E will be perpendicular to ds, as we have discussed already, because electric field is in this direction, and the normal to the surface is in this direction. So the angle between them is 90 degrees. The net flux through the cylindrical Gaussian surface is phi is equal to surface integral over a closed path or closed surface E bar dot ds, what it becomes. Now, if you want to find out the total flux going out or coming into this linear charge distribution, we have to calculate the flux through this entire Gaussian surface. This can be divided into three parts. The first one is left side. This is this portion. For this portion, how much will be the surface integral of E bar dot ds bar, and for right side portion also we have to calculate this. This is the right side portion. For right side portion, how much will be the surface integral of E bar dot ds bar, and for the next one, the last one is for this curved surface, how much will be the surface integral of E bar dot ds bar, we have to calculate. Yes, and the both ends of the Gaussian cylinder is perpendicular to the axial vector ds bar. As we have discussed, this electric field is perpendicular to this axial vector, and in this case also the electric field is perpendicular to axial vector. In these two cases, what happens? E bar dot ds bar becomes 0. So this now these two portions we can neglect because they are becoming 0. So on the curved surface, E is in the direction of ds. So E ds E bar dot ds bar is equal to E ds cos theta becomes, because theta is equal to 0, right? That's why this cos theta becomes 1. Now we are writing this one as simply E ds. Now the total electric flux which is going out of this Gaussian surface will be 0 plus 0. That means 0 for both flat surfaces. The electric flux is 0 because the area vector and the electric field are perpendicular to each other. That's why they become 0. And but for curved surface, whereas for curved surface, the electric field and the area vector both are parallel. That's why the angle between them is 0. That's why what happens? This E bar dot ds bar becomes E ds. Now E we write as it is, but ds is the area of the ds is the area of the curved surface. The curved surface is in cylindrical shape. Okay, that curved surface is in cylindrical shape. That's why what we have to take, we have to calculate the cylindrical surface area. But the cylindrical surface as we have discussed already, that is R, whereas the length of the cylindrical surface is L. Now the area of the cylindrical surface will be equal to 2 pi into RL, where R is the radius of the cylindrical surface, L is the length of the cylindrical surface. So now this one becomes where integral over a closed surface ds is equal to 2 pi RL is the surface area of the cylindrical Gaussian surface. So this is the flux, electric flux. This is the electric flux through the entire Gaussian surface. What we have considered to find out the electric field due to a linear charge, infinite linear charge distribution at a point P, where we have considered that point P at the distance of R from the linear charge distribution. So now we have to calculate the charge, because in Gauss law, if you want to apply the Gauss law, we have to calculate the flux through this Gaussian surface. That is one part. The other part we have to calculate is that how much charge is enclosed within that Gaussian surface. We have to calculate. So we have already calculated the flux through the Gaussian surface, that is E into 2 pi RL. Now we are calculating the charge enclosed within this Gaussian surface. So the charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface is Q, that is equal to lambda into L, where lambda is the linear charge density and L is the length of the conductor what we have taken. So now according to Gauss law, what happens? This our flux should be equal to Q by epsilon naught. So if you substitute that one, pi instead of pi, this E into 2 pi RL here, and instead of Q, if you substitute lambda L by epsilon naught, by simplifying this thing, we will get E bar is equal to lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught. Okay, epsilon naught R. So this gives the electric field due to an infinite long charge distribution. So if we have an infinite long charge distribution like wire kind of thing, if you suppose this is a wire kind of thing, this is a wire kind of thing, which is having infinite long charge distribution, then if you want to find out the electric field at a point P, which is at a distance r, from the wire, okay, then the electric field because of this wire charge, because of this linear charge distribution at point P will be equal to E bar is equal to lambda divided by 2 pi epsilon naught r. This is the final equation. Okay. Next, let us calculate the electric field due to an infinite conducting sheet of charge. So this is the infinite sheet of conducting charge. This one. This is the infinite sheet of conducting charge. To find the electric field for this kind of surfaces, we have to consider a Gaussian surface, which is a like a pill. Pill kind of, the pill means it's a kind of medicine, like medicinal work, like kind of thing. So we have to consider this kind of Gaussian surface. If we consider that Gaussian surface, here we have two kind of thing. Again, this is a cylindrical Gaussian surface. This is one portion. This is other surface. This is cylindrical Gaussian surface. Okay. So now we are considering that because always electric field will be from positive charge to negative charge, right? That's why the electric field will be in this direction, as like in this direction, like this. Okay. Now for this particular Gaussian surface, for this particular Gaussian surface, the aerial vector is in this direction, and our field also is in this direction. That means the angle between them is 0. Whereas if you consider this Gaussian surface, this one, this left portion, for this particular vector, the aerial vector will be in this direction, whereas the electric field is in this direction. That means the angle between electric field vector and this aerial vector is 180 degrees. So that's why cos theta, here cos theta becomes cos 180 is nothing but minus 1. But whereas in this case cos 0 is equal to 1, right? So the flux from this surface and flux from this surface cancels each other, because in one surface the flux is entering into this Gaussian surface, that we take negative in convention, whereas in this particular surface the flux is diverging from the surface, we take this one as negative. But the thing is here that both are equal and opposite, that's why they cancel each other. Now we have to calculate the electric flux due to this curved surface. Sorry, the electric flux due to this curved surface. If you consider this curved surface again, this one is here, aerial vector will be in this direction, whereas electric field is in this direction. So now what we have to do is consider a charge conducting surface of charge density sigma, where sigma is the surface charge density. Just remember, surface charge density means the charge per unit area. Suppose if you consider this the area of this particular conducting sheet, on this one let us say 2 is a charge which is distributed uniformly, then the surface charge density is equal to sigma is equal to the total charge enclosed in the sheet of charge divided by the, if you divide it with the area, then we'll get the surface charge density. So the surface charge density is sigma is equal to Q by A, where Q is the charge enclosed within this sheet of charge. It's like a aerial sheet, okay. And if you divide it that with a area of that sheet, we will get the surface charge density. Let P be a point near the surface and outside the conductor. Now here we are considering a point P. which is just outside the conductor and but very near to the sheet of charge. To determine the electric field at the P, we construct a cylindrical Gaussian surface like this. Okay, the direction of the electric field near the surface is perpendicular to the surface, as conducting surface is a equipotential surface. So the electric flux through the cylindrical surface results from the two ends and curved surface of the cylinder, as it is I have explained. At the right hand, E is parallel to ds, whereas at the left hand, E is not equal to ds, because there is no flux entering into the surface, right? That's why at the left hand there is no electric field. E will be equal to 0. Here we are considering that. Just remember one thing. That means, just let me explain. We are considering this sheet. Just observe here one thing. We are considering this is a sheet. Okay. This sheet will be having two sides. Let us say this is a sheet. What we have done? Just we have charged the sheet only one side, this side, not this side. So the charge will be piling up only this side. This side there won't be any charge. That's why the electric field will be this side will be 0, whereas the electric field for this side will be there. So at the left end there is no electric field. That's why E is equal to 0. The electric flux through the curved surface is 0, because E and ds are perpendicular to each other for this curved surface. For this curved surface, our electric field is in this direction, but the area vector of an element on the surface will be in this direction. But because the E bar and this ds bar are perpendicular to each other for this cylindrical Gaussian surface, that's why the flux through that surface is equal to 0. Now the total flux will be surface integral over a closed path for right side, and surface integral over a closed path for left side, and the surface integral over a closed path, closed curve, that is cylindrical Gaussian surface, what base becomes. But whereas this is equal to 0, because for curved surface the flux is 0, because the angle between E bar and ds bar is 90 degrees, whereas for left side E bar is equal to 0, because there is no charge enclosed within this Gaussian surface. Therefore, when the charge is 0, then the electric field obviously 0. For right side, the electric field is E bar, whereas ds bar and the electric field are both in same direction. That's why this one we can write like this. Total flux phi is equal to E bar is constant throughout the surface. We are taking the E, that is the magnitude of the T bar, and integral ds bar. Integral ds bar is nothing but S. So phi is equal to E into S plus 0 it becomes. So this is the final equation for electric flux through that cylindrical shape of Gaussian surface. Now according to Gauss law, this electric flux is equal to Q by epsilon naught. That's why now we are writing Q, because Q already we have defined one parameter, that is surface charge density. Whereas surface charge density is the charge enclosed within this surface divided by the area of the surface. Now what we are doing, writing, instead of Q we are writing sigma into A. And one more thing is that the total flux is the total flux through the surface, Gaussian surface, is E into S or E into A, whatever we can take. Okay. Now we are applying Gauss law. If you apply Gauss law, the left side is E into A, and the right side is sigma S by epsilon naught it becomes. So this A and A cancels out, and finally we will be ending up with E bar E is equal to sigma by epsilon naught. So this is the electric field. This is the electric field due to a infinite sheet of charge. This kind of arrangement, an infinite sheet of charge, which is having charge to distributed over the surface, right surface only. Then the electric field due to that distribution of charge is equal to sigma by epsilon naught. So this is the these two are the applications of our Gauss law. So let me briefly explain what we have discussed in this today class. So these are the questions that will be asked mainly on this topic what we have discussed. The first question is state Gauss law, express Gauss law in a differential form. So first of all, what we have to do, we have to give the statement of Gauss law, that is the definition of Gauss law, which is the flux to a Gaussian surface, that is integral over a closed path E bar dot ds bar is equal to the charge enclosed within that Gaussian surface, that is Q by epsilon naught. That is statement of Gauss law. Now we know the Gauss law in integral form, that is integral over a closed path E bar dot ts bar is equal to Q by epsilon naught, right? So this is the integral form of Gauss law. From this one we have derived the differential form of Gauss law. After that we have obtained an expression for electric field intensity at a point due to infinite conducting sheet of charge. That is electric field due to the infinite conducting sheet of charge is E bar is equal to Q by epsilon naught. And we have also discussed we have also derived an expression for electric field intensity due to an infinitely long charge distribution. That is a wire kind of thing is we have taken for this wire kind of thing, the charge distributed on this wire is Q. Here we have taken the linear charge distribution, that is lambda. That's why finally we have ended up with an equation for electric charge. Electric field due to linear charge distribution, that is called lambda by 2 pi epsilon naught r. So these are the things we have discussed. So these are the applications of Gauss law. So in tomorrow class we will discuss about remaining applications of Gauss law. That is, if you take a spherical charge distribution, or conducting highly conducting sphere, if the Q amount of charge is distributed over that particular surface, particular volume, then if you take a point P at distance r from the center of the conducting sphere, how much will be the electric field at particular point? That we are going to find out in the tomorrow class. And we are also considering three cases. That is, when the point is outside the surface or somewhere outside the surface, how much will be the electric field in that particular case? And if the point is exactly resides on this Gaussian surface, how much will be the electric field at that particular point? And we are also going to consider one more point, that is inside the Gaussian, inside the conducting sphere. If we consider the point inside the conducting sphere, how much will be the electric field due to the charge which is enclosed within the conducting sphere? These three cases we are going to discuss in the tomorrow class. That is very important question. Okay, so if you have any doubts, please post your questions and comments in the chat box. I will explain the answers to your questions, and I will try to elaborate the things one by one. Thank you very much. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in the next class, or you can post your questions in the WhatsApp group or in our WhatsApp group also. I will answer those questions. Thank you very much. With this, I concluding my lecture.